Hot.
Hey.
Hey.
Yo.
Welcome.
Bring it.
Tampa Fishing Outfitters live fishing report. Myself, Captain Travis, Captain Jason, Captain James.
What's going on, boys?
Yo.
Captain Rick.
Yep.
I got stuck with the lapel mic tonight, so
Sorry, bro. I was going to
two
take
weeks in a
It's,
row for me, your turn.
we got some new equipment coming. But in the meantime, I'm going to look like the guy with my hand in my nose all night.
Do you want this one?
No. And
I got a collar.
Rick has a lapel.
Yeah, come on.
But it's cool. No, I'll just do like the gangster lean all night.
It's not
So-
a bad idea.
But anyway, well, welcome, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
We got a good show planned.
We
Rick,
got a good show.
Yes.
you got to.
Well, he's got to set it up.
Come on.
Set
man.
it up.
Set me up on the comments.
Dude.
You're right. Oh, hang on.
We got a good show planned tonight, fellas. We got something different tonight.
What do we have planned?
We got a little. So we're gonna talk a little fishing like we always do, and we are also gonna try to break down. We're gonna talk some maintenance, and one of the big headaches of boating, besides boat engines and boats and everything that goes with a boat, one of the biggest headaches, and it all starts with getting to the ramp.
Yeah.
That's when the other headache starts. Well, getting to the ramp is also a headache,
Yes.
and trailer maintenance. So we're going to cover trailer maintenance. Now, we're going to do something a little different. We've never actually done this on the show. We have actually got we've got a hub, we've got a spindle, we've got a light. We're going to show you how to, although the two biggest headaches with trailers is the hubs, well, three, the tires, the hubs, and lights.
Yeah, don't
They
forget
never
the
seem to
tires.
work all together.
In no particular order, only what's most.
There's always
recently
one
gone
of them
wrong.
broke. So we're going to try to show you. We're going to show you some good setups for lights with technology nowadays. We're also going to show you when you do put new lights on your boat how you want to correctly connect the wires. And Travis is actually going to do that today, or James, one or the other. And me
How
and
many
Rick
wires are there?
Huh?
Is there more than one?
Just
Three.
it's connected
Three.
dots.
Yeah. Red,
I'm
yellow,
going to give you
and
guys a little secret. We are not going to use. I'm having a brain fart. Wire. What do they call the wire
Wire
screw?
nuts.
Wire nuts. There we go.
Wire nuts.
We're
No.
not using wire nuts today, okay? So anybody that's been using wire nuts on
But-
their trailers,
In a pinch.
But I will say
yeah,
this.
for one day.
Yeah.
We'll do another show where we'll all bring in our safety box, our toolbox of what we got on the boat. That'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See what you got.
Oh, I got
Like-
a voltmeter.
like you could
son. I
about
gotta read
rebuild the
ohms on
boat.
water.
Yeah.
Out of my box. But wire nuts.
You might have me on electrical side.
wire
but-
nuts is one
So
to
you
keep
carry
on
it
the boat.
all the time.
Yeah, I do. I carry wire nuts. I carry a handful of them.
That's
Monkey
that's
wrench.
wire nuts are a good
For
quick
quick.
fix.
That's what I'm
Quick
talking
fix, get you back to the
That's
dock.
why I
Yeah.
threw that
Dude.
out there.
See, how could you miss zip ties? If you ain't got zip ties on the boat,
Ooh.
you're not
Zip
living.
Guys in the boat.
Zip
Oh,
ties
gotta
is
have
crucial.
zip ties.
Zip ties is crucial. And I tell you what's
Well,
nice
electrical tape, right? That's
is
what
the
you're
big
No.
long zip ties, like the ones for the
Yeah,
air conditioner.
And I don't have any in my
And
boat
I'll
right
tell you
now.
where they come into play is like a trolling motor, you break a trolling motor, power pole pump,
Yeah.
something, bust a power pole hose,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. You never know what kind of little tricks. Not to mention your anchor, because I always put a couple of zip ties on the back side of my
That's
anchor.
what mine are for.
So
that's what I keep.
Anyway,
the thing about trailer maintenance is the maintenance part will keep you from the roadside disaster. And it's usually, when something happens to you on the road, it's never as easy as when you can get to it beforehand.
No.
I think we were talking about this before the show, and I made the joke that where we're talking about spindles and you just swap the spindle out. Well, generally, it's not that easy if you have to do it on the road. It's one of those things that if you take care of it in advance, it's going to save you a lot of money, a lot of headache, and a lot of time, and not cut into your fishing time. Because it usually happens on the way to the ramp or coming home. So, taking care of some of these things is definitely gonna save you in the long run.
Yeah, and it don't matter if you live in Tampa Bay, if you live across the world, whatever. If you're trailing a boat, this is gonna apply you today.
Salt,
so
fresh, doesn't matter.
yeah, I will tell you this: if you're freshwater, if you think you have problems, come on over to saltwater with trailers. Then you're gonna see some real problems.
In the water, water's nice.
Yeah, so there's some products out there that I'm gonna go over that I think they will slow the process as far as having failures. There's some newer stuff out there, just like everything with reels and everything.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of technology, but there's some stuff every day we'll go over and we'll show you basically why it's going to be better, and it's not going to stop the problem, but it'll help it from happening so fast. So just like boats and rods and reels, there is some difference in trailer manufacturers. While they all are aluminum, they all don't come with the same components.
There is. And I'm listening to you. I'm just watching my boy Garrett up here from New Jersey. If it's as cold as they say it is up there, he ain't got nothing better to do than watch our show.
Yeah. You bring your trailer off from New Jersey, it's freezing in 10 seconds.
Man,
Garrett's he's from Tampa. He's a pilot.
Okay.
Yeah, so
okay.
I'm friends with him on Facebook.
Gotcha.
He's flying all over, keeps me tuned into where
it's got to be. They had like some record. I don't know if not New Jersey, but I know out like Midwest, like
everywhere
they've got some
Florida.
Crazy like negative 50-degree weather.
That's called everywhere but Florida right now. I think.
The guys on my boat today were from Indiana, and he goes, "So what do you do?" He's like, "Well, we just don't go outside." I'm like ever?
For
like
days.
You just don't go outside? And it's like, yeah, it's actually like a hazard. Like it's dangerous
it was
to
24 degrees.
You breathe it in. And
I think that's what it was yesterday morning here.
Like freezes your lungs.
Did anybody fish yesterday?
I did not fish yesterday, but
it was beautiful after that.
Had the
cold
joy
left,
of
and then
this
I
morning.
was trying to get my group for today to move to yesterday because I really didn't want any parties.
Yesterday was nice.
Yeah. By about 10 o'clock.
Today we'll go ahead and roll it into fishing reports. We got quite a few guys looking at us here, so we'll jam out some fishing reports, like we said, guys. For those just tuning in, quick reports, and then we're gonna do some trailer stuff, break down some hubs. But I know I fished today. I think James fished today. Jason had a reschedule, but nothing. I wouldn't say there was anything to brag about today on the water. One of them days where to grind it out, catch a few fish, I think was really the goal. I had some really cool guys, some older gentlemen from Indiana that were staying at the resort, and we went out with some shrimp, caught some trout. One guy foul hooked a stingray. Had a few fish that could come unbuttoned. We had one really nice big doormat flounder at the boat that got off. But it was one of those days where really chased the bite around quite a bit. And, I think later in the day would have probably been the best opportunity to get a decent, active bite going. And we just didn't. We were off the water by then. Yeah. At least, as far as I, thought. But the one thing I will say is at about 11 o'clock, that cold front sat right on top of us.
Yeah.
It was cold.
I mean, it
cold air.
When I left this morning, I put the boat in about, I guess it was about 9 o'clock. I picked those guys up at 10. And when I came out of Simmons Park and looked to the north across like St. Pete and Tampa, you could see the ridge line of that front. Yeah. It was just a dark gray, and I actually thought it was going to rain. I was like, is that rain?
It looked like it. I was up
and there. It wasn't. It was that cold front that just pushed right over. And it dropped down for a solid 30 minutes or so.
Wind got real cool.
And then it, kind of started to warm up. But anyway, not a killer day, but we did catch some fish, so we were happy with that.
It can't be killer days every day.
No, that's the truth, man.
Armando gave us a shout-out there. He asked if any of us are doing the one-man. I'm not. I don't think any of you guys are. I'm booked.
I'm fishing.
You're out on that 48-inch rule anyways, right?
I can't fish the Florida, I don't know what it is now, the power pole Power Pole Pro.
Yeah, because you
Because
ain't
of
got
our-
a boat
yeah.
that.
Yeah, we don't have. I don't have a
Thank you.
tower.
We don't have flats boats.
Yeah, I had to go through the
Win some, you
ringer
lose some.
this morning just to get fishing. Luckily, I gave myself some time. I told you guys I went to my normal bait spot and ran into a no bait, no shrimp situation, so had to make a run to another
No
place
doubt.
across town to get it. But big thanks to Apollo Beach Bait and Tackle for having it coming through. So had to trek back a little bit, get it, and yeah, I picked up at 9:30. And it was probably a little bit sooner than you ran into it, and it was just on us from the get-go.
Right.
And we were catching fish to begin with, but I never, for the first probably 2 or 3 hours of fishing, I never felt comfortable in a spot like we're going to sit here and work these fish. It was kind of, hey, 10, 15 minutes, move, 10, 15 minutes, move. And then I was talking to you at the ramp when I was cleaning the boat. Then we finally found the right size fish, the right fish who were cooperative, and we got into some pretty good trout, but I can tell you what I noticed different today about sheep's head, which there's probably several factors, is where I was or in a region that I've been getting sheep's head in and around docks and shallower water, keeper size, forget it today. I mean, we were in juvenile mode. We were 6 to 11.99 inch, sheep's head all day, with only 2 keepers out of maybe 50 fish that came to the boat. So that was the biggest change for me. The trout were in every place I checked on them, just had to find the right ones. But I wanted to get out and get into some of that middle bay fishing that we were talking about on Friday, and just couldn't do it with that wind today. But I'm anxious to get out there and see what's going on now.
Yeah, I fished. I haven't fished this week because I canceled the day. They just didn't want to do it, and I didn't push them. Tomorrow I've got a trip that I moved to Friday. They could go Friday, and the weather just looks better. But I did fish. How was it? Friday, Saturday, somewhere in there. It wasn't Friday because I think it was Saturday. One of those days towards the end of the week, and we did good. We caught a lot of fish. Maybe it was Thursday. It was right before that front. I can't even remember, but
you did fish Thursday because you kept the shrimp from last week.
Yep. Okay, you're right. So we fished right behind that strong front we had, and really did good. I told the guys I fished them the day before. We had white bait, caught snook. We caught some nice trout. We caught some reds. Actually, we didn't catch reds. We caught snook and trout. I said this is going to be a 180-degree turn when we go out there because I'm not going to be able to get white bait, and didn't even want to try. And we did really good. We caught some pretty good size, some monster grunts, bunch of grunts. I mean, every drop.
Yeah,
I was bottom fishing. Yeah, I started throwing them back, and we got some nice sheep's head. Not a ton of them, but we had some big ones. We got some red grouper. We got some small gags. We got some stuff that broke us off. It ended up being a good trip. We caught a lot of fish.
What's up, Joe?
Were bent.
It was every drop. I went through 10 dozen shrimp in like 3 hours.
Wow.
And actually, I went through more than that because I got low, and then I started breaking them. I was like,
that was me today.
So,
10 dozen.
Yeah. So it was a good trip, and I'm actually looking forward to doing that again because it on these cold, 52. I don't know what you guys marked today, probably 52, 53. At 53-degree water temp on the flats is just tough. I don't care what you try. I mean, you will get some fish, but that metabolism just slows down. Where that bay fishing, as long as the wind's down, you can get out there, and it's just not – them fish are just not affected as much by, the cold. And plus, I'm sure that 20-foot range is going to hold heat, a steady temperature, which makes it a lot better. So
you feel like those fish are less susceptible to like the post-front condition when that pressure.
I do. Rick said something years ago that really there's very few things that there's every once in a while I hear something and it just sticks to me.
God.
And it was good. No, it was good. And he said, he said in deeper water that high pressure doesn't affect the fish as much.
Yeah.
And that is so true. And I never really thought about it that way till he said that. And I always take the approach. It don't matter how far I am in my career. Every day you learn something or you hear something that makes you better, you're ahead of the game.
I've heard Rick make that reference as we've been doing the show.
And it makes sense because when he told me that, I said
that from another guy. So I mean,
well, it makes sense. I have caught fish on the bottom on high pressure days better than I have on shallow water and deeper stuff. So it made a lot of sense. Whether it's true or not, somebody don't tell me different because it's worked ever since.
You don't break the confidence.
Well, they come from I don't know if y'all know who Boomer is. He fishes out of Miami.
Yeah.
That's where I learned.
Boomer or Bouncer?
Bouncer.
Yeah, well, if he said it, I'd say that's a credible source.
Yeah, Boomer. Goodness. Yeah, Bouncer.
To kind of
that from him years ago.
Yeah.
And heck, I heard him say that before I even started guiding. So
it's funny, and I don't want to go on a tangent. I got a VCR tape. Tell you how much I used to like fishing, and it was like how-to videos.
Heck yeah, Tony.
From like some of the famous. This is when guys were kind of like would stand out. Now trying to stand out now is tough, but he had a video on tarpon fishing down in Miami, and I had like 4 of them, and his one I remember because it was really. I could probably watch it now and learn stuff. I don't know if I have a VCR, but it was a very good video, and there was a few more.
He had a guest on there one time years ago that would never use the same bait twice.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not talking about after it got hit. He would cast a white bait out there.
Well, this wasn't.
And if he reeled it in, he put a new one on.
This wasn't a TV series. I think he had a TV show at one time.
Yeah, he
right?
did.
This was actually like a how-to video.
Oh,
it wasn't like his show. It was a separate deal, but it was really cool and very very learned a lot from it. But there's also another one on snook. I can't remember who did that one. And then the other thing I remember sticks to me. Just going off on a little tangent here is. Remember going to the boat show, and Frank Sargent and Scott Moore had a book they wrote on snook fishing.
I
probably still have that book.
I have that.
I bought it.
Scott's a pretty good one to listen to.
Them old timers.
Right,
Them old timers, boy. They might get off on a little bit of a rant if you get them going too much, but you always pick up a trick or two. And I think as they gotten older, they're a little more lenient to share that stuff because they know that they're on the way like this, and the other ones are coming in. When they're coming in, boy, they don't like to let that stuff go too much. But all them old timers, man, you'll learn something. That's funny you say that. That makes it even that much better. It was coming from that kind of source. But interesting stuff. Rick, give us a report, man.
I haven't fished since last.
We fished Friday.
That
make
would,
it up,
dude. I haven't fished.
This guy's so truthful, man. He's hard to do the show sometimes.
It is what it is, but I did go with James Friday. We went to catch a sheephead.
Go to a little recon.
We
went
to do a YouTube video of how to clean a sheephead, and like
work than we anticipated.
like I said on the video, thank goodness James.
So who was
there.
the guide and who was the fisherman?
He was guiding.
I was guiding. We were just going to Rick's spots.
Yeah, it was like thank goodness James was there because I never caught a fish.
But
now the truth comes out.
Yeah, it was like 18-inch sheephead. Though. It was a nice.
But you know what? Honestly, we had the conversation on the boat. It's so seldom that we get that time to fish.
It was fun.
You know what?
I enjoyed it.
What did we catch? 1 or 2 fish in 4 hours, 3 hours?
Yeah,
and
it was tough.
I wouldn't have known the difference. I was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you to both you guys because I know the day that y'all went out, and I probably would have canned it. I probably said, boys, we're going to miss another day. And I called y'all, and y'all like, I'm on the boat. I'm like, what are you doing on the boat?
I woke up. I have really big oaks on my property. I woke up, and they're...
We come out of the back country. We was going to see what it would look like to get to the rock pile.
Yeah.
We got almost to the markers, and James says, man, what do you think? I said, I think there'll be another day to do this.
We turned right around.
Now, Rick, if me and you are on the boat, you know how to set at the mouth of the river? We're going back in the river.
Back in the river. Yeah. But it was fun. I had a good time. Like I never caught a fish, but I only had 3 bites, and I, set the hook like a Bass Pro on all 3 of them. So tell people all day long, don't set the hook. And
we should do a video.
Whaling.
We need to do. Did you actually get setting the hook?
No, we didn't. I wanted to.
We need to go back out because
I had a lot of weight on my shoulders after I saw what
oh man. But we need to do it. We need to go back out on a good day when we got the sheep's head bite going. That spawn's starting to happen. And go out there and when we're popping them one after another, go through
as it was.
Hook set technique on them.
And excuse me. We talked about shrimp last week on our show, and the kind of topic came up about the J hook, and exactly what you talked about.
But we were on purpose was doing it
circle
opposite. He had J hook, I had circle hook.
There's something about it.
See.
With shrimp,
we could have got better data had we been getting bites, but I mean the bites we were getting were very few and far between.
You want to know? So I mean, the J hook works better for me. Always has worked better for clients when I'm doing that.
You're just a lot more alert. You're a lot more alert.
No question.
I got some fish in the boat with a J hook. Well, today I had customers that wanted to do some sheep's head, and I mean we caught a ton of sheep's head. And these guys fish a lot up in the Virginia area, rock fishing. So they were all about flipping the fish in the boat, grabbing it, taking them off, putting a new shrimp. They were just going through the process. Well, finally one of the guys asks me, he's like, hey, Captain, I need the pliers on this one. And I look over, and he's got a circle hook, and he caught 25 sheep's head on that circle hook. And I'm talking the smaller ones, the ones that are even more difficult. And I was like, dang, you've been using a circle hook all day? He goes, I don't know the difference.
Yeah.
He's like,
I think it's in your head. I use circles all the
I
time.
dialed it.
No,
I use on 'em
and you
on my
can.
trips.
I think it's a timing thing with the circle hook.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
It's
I got a
different.
technique
Just
that I'll
different.
be
I
glad to
just
show you
think-
guys that I use circle
yeah,
hooks
well,
and it
let's get out
works.
there on the rocks, man.
Let's do it.
I'm going to buy some sheep.
Oh,
I want
man.
to eat some.
Y'all want to pick a windier day, or y'all want to?
yeah,
We
the windier the
definitely-
better.
We
I
do
mean,
not
We
want-
like the challenge.
Yeah.
I like days
we
with
didn't
the
like the
words
challenge.
advisory or caution in them for, like, fishing deeper.
really get
Dude,
serious.
here's
really
my
good
rule
about
with
it, yeah.
bottom fishing. Period in the bay. If I can't use the rod end, I don't go.
No.
I just if I can't drop the trolling, I'm not dropping the hook anymore.
Well,
I'm
that's
lazy.
me giving him the keyboard, which probably means we're going to break.
Yes,
gonna-
we
And
are.
then you need to take over because we got.
Well, me and
hey,
Rick, we're gonna mix it
throw,
up.
We're gonna throw the trivia question out when we come back.
Yeah, Blue Water
Start it
Gear
off.
shirt. To you want to do the trivia now,
all
or
right.
when we get back, Rick?
we do it when we get
No,
back.
All
get
right.
it back because these guys are going to stick around. Just got to watch a quick
You
commercial.
want to go ahead
Yeah,
and give the
shoot it
trivia?
now. Trivia now.
He
Okay.
got one in his pocket. Look at that.
Oh,
Look at this.
baby.
It's like
This is a little different angle than the trivia
I
question.
don't even know if this one can be Googled.
I don't know.
Can it?
I think
our
that's the
listeners
point.
are gonna have to step their game up tonight, boys. You're gonna have to use your thinker.
How
And
many
not your
high
Google.
schools participate in the FWC high school fishing program, and what and who is the major sponsor of
Double
that program?
whammy?
Double whammy.
Ooh.
This is difficult. We only got 40
Yeah.
minutes left in the
Well,
show.
hey,
Fire it off one more time,
Dig
Rick.
One more time, then we're going to break.
how
Blue
many
Water
high
Gear
schools-
shirt.
How many high schools participate in the FWC high school fishing program, and who is the premier sponsor of that program?
All right. Put it in the comments, guys. Let us know. Give it a guess. We'll give you clues as we get going. But in the meantime, let's take a break. We'll be back on the other side.
We're gonna be in the hole after getting a.
Hey
All right,
guys,
we're back.
you found the confusion right here. Tampa Fishing Outfitters live fishing
I
report.
don't know what is about to go down.
Were
But we got the
I
rubber
don't know.
gloves
We got
going on.
rubber gloves
Find
popping
out.
all around me.
Man, I don't like that sound.
All right. In the meantime, Travis, entertain them.
As long as there's not two hands on your shoulder, you'll be all right.
So we definitely got to give a big shout out to Loadmaster for hooking us up with the parts to be able to do this because I don't have any spare parts for it anyway. So
All right.
good thing we got that.
Most redded sound you'll ever hear.
There it is.
So
So
this is what we're gonna do tonight, fellas. I'm gonna set all the stuff out here, and Rick, I'm gonna let you go over the bearing. I'm gonna let you pack the bearings. I know you know how to do that. You
Yep.
don't have to pack both. We can just pack one.
I'll just pack
We
one.
wanna
I'm gonna
sh-
pack
you know,
the big
show 'em the
one.
races.
It's a little easier.
We're gonna lay out.
Travis, yes.
Yeah, I got you.
You might. Is Rick the only person with the trivia answer? Or did you share? Because I don't know.
I shared it.
All right.
With who?
So
Okay. It's not Bass Pro Shop.
What I don't have is a ton
not
of
Bass
grease.
Pro Shop,
And it's not 7.
not 7, Costa 30.
That's it. That's it. Whoever that is, Jace.
Jace?
Yeah.
Jace.
Coaster's the premier sponsor, and there's 30 schools that
All right,
participate.
Jace, shoot us a
case you
message
need to
with
tap
your
in.
size, right, Jason? So we can get that over to Blue Water?
Yes, message it over on the page, and I'll get it over to Blue Water again, and send me an address, or I'll figure that out.
Jason,
30,000, Raphael. Holy cow.
No.
dirt.
That's all right. Don't
That's
worry
all right.
about
It's just for
That's-
show.
it. I don't
how
use that to
Jason
pack
rolls.
bearings.
All right, so what do we? So here, let's walk.
There's
So what are we
dirt in
doing
the
first?
grease.
I just use that
So we're
for
doing.
like
We're gonna
lip
pack a
seals.
bearing
Yeah.
and show that first, right?
Okay.
Now let's do this
That's
because
fine.
it's right here. He can get ready for that. Okay, guys. So I'm going to show y'all some different pieces here. This is a traditional hub. Hub's all the basic thing. Okay. What you have in here, these knock in with a hammer. This is your race.
So
This
the hub is. Let's.
hub is what goes on your trailer. So this is a spindle. So you know what I didn't do is pop this off. Okay, so this is your spindle. Your hub slides on here. You got a bearing and a bearing. Your spindle, depending on what kind of trailer you have, this is one of the features that I'll go over in a little bit with Loadmaster. I know other trailers do it. I'm going to say Loadmaster because I use them and I know they do it. This is a whole spindle. Trailer companies now have gotten smart, and they'll give you on your spare tire, instead of a spare tire on a fixed mounted deal, they'll have a whole spindle. Now here's all you do is this mounts to your trailer, and if you blow a hub or you get a bad hub, if this is not rusted to pieces and your trailer's not 10 years old, you pop this pin off with pliers, unscrew this castle nut, the whole hub and tire will come off. So then you just screw the new one on with the hub already assembled, put your tire on, and you're ready to go. So
that is so nice.
It is nice, but the key is not to have to do this, and that's what we're going to try to show you tonight.
Yeah, because I know that every trailer I've ever operated out of, except for my current one, does not have that feature. And the spindle can be kind of a pain.
So I'm going to show you there's two types of hubs. This is Loadmaster, and there might be some other comment. I'm going to say Loadmaster, but they use this is what they call a Vortex hub. They advertise it. It's a 100,000-mile maintenance-free hub. Now, this is a traditional hub. Now, most people that are looking at this are going, what's the difference?
Seen that before.
The first big difference, anybody ever have these caps, and you might not know what that cap is, and it flies off. Because it's a cheap pot metal cap that's a press fit, and you take a hammer and you tap it in. Problem is, your hub's spinning I don't know how many mile an hour, and this will fly off. Here's one of the first differences I'm going to show you. This really has no seal here. It's got this little thing that pops off and on. It gets worn out with heat and shrinks and retracts. So first thing they've done, if you can see right here, there's an O-ring right there. Okay, so and this screws in. So when you're putting this hub system together, and I want to see if I can screw it. It screws down and tightens down on an O-ring. What that does, it makes it watertight. That is the key to your hubs surviving, is not getting water. In this whole area right here is filled with grease. It has your bearings. That's the stuff that's really not supposed to get wet.
Right.
Something else on there, when you take that off, it was hard to see because of the grease there, but there's a Zerk fitting.
Yeah.
Yes, so you do have a Zerk fitting.
And
now
that's not a thing of the past.
So grease fittings are
really
normal.
good.
Yeah, a lot of them have it. The key is with the Vortex system, they have it on their paperwork. I don't know if you can break. We'll go through that later, but it's 5 years, parts and labor, 100,000 miles is what they say.
They
maintenance
don't
free.
even want that seal ever to be broken.
Yeah, if this seal doesn't break and that seal doesn't break,
you're good.
The grease doesn't go bad.
Right. Yeah.
So I couldn't read it in the paperwork. I'm pretty sure they use a synthetic. Dang it! They use a synthetic grease.
Garrett, I'm on the same page with you, brother, because every time I've had a blown hub, exactly what he's in. I've seen so many spindles with a melted bearing welded to it.
Well, because you don't. By the time the hub,
you can beat them out from the backside.
Yeah.
If your wheel is 14 inches in diameter, okay, and it's spinning, let's just say 70 mile an hour. If you're Brian Visnevec, you pull it at 90, but which he does. You can only imagine as you reduce the circumference of that, it's just spinning that much faster. I don't even know. That would be a Travis answer. It's getting kind of technical on how fast these bearings are spinning at their size. So, you have to have this stuff. It's got to have grease and it's got to be lubed. So I'm gonna break this down real quick to show you. So this is the castle nut. Now what they do have that I took off is if you see this cotter pin here, there's a hole right here. And that's why you got these slots. So it lines up when you tighten this down. You want to get it snug. You do not want to tighten it all the way down. This is going to be closed, and you pop that pin through, and you take it, and you bend the tab back. That keeps the nut from ever backing off. It's a safety feature. But this thing's actually got little grooves on it, like a lock nut kind of, so it's kind of tight. So I'm going to disassemble this and show you the difference here. Suckers. It's a good thing the nut don't want to come off that holds your wheel on. Okay, I'm going to break it down one by one. So that's the castle nut. And then we're going to take, this is what I just showed you before it's assembled.
Awesome.
Okay, so not a whole lot of difference from the traditional one to this one besides a bearing's a bearing. You can look at that. They're all the same. That's what this has got grease on it. There's a washer here. Now the backside I can't take apart without popping the seal out, but that's why we have the other one. This is what this one doesn't have, the traditional. Right. It's just a bearing and an inner seal. This has got like an outer, I'm going to call it I'm having a brain fart now, but I'm going to call it a lip seal. So hydraulics have something like this. They have an inner seal, and then they have a lip seal. The lip seal kind of catches the dirt and the debris so it doesn't break your inner seal. This really is doing nothing. It's like you call it dirt seal, lip seal. But if you look here, again, O-ring. O-rings are huge. In here, and this covers, this seal is what seals your grease. This seal covers it.
Right.
So I'm not going to pop this out, but you have a bearing. I don't know if you can see right in here. Your other bearing, which is Rick's got right here, sits. Let me see this real quick, Rick. In here, just like this. Now these are kind of dummy proof. If you decide you want to tackle this, the key is don't put your races. So shine that camera straight down here. You have a race in here. You can see that lip. That race is beveled. It's designed for that bearing to sit like that. So whatever you do when you knock these bearings in, and they tap in, they're press fit. You can tap in. A good secret that you can do, or secret tip, is to find a thin wall socket that fits that, and you can beat it in.
Right.
If you don't use a socket, you can use a flat style punch. Just go easy with it. You don't want to. You don't want to
get them in sideways either, because they have to go straight
once you
down.
Once you get it started, and they knock in. They're designed to knock in. You can put heat around here and all that. You don't need to do all that. It'll knock in if you do it right. The easiest way, if you can find some kind of socket or some kind of metal, something to beat in, then you could put an actual extension on there. But this sits in on that bevel, and that's what rides. This sits on the spindle, and that's what a bearing does. It turns. So it sits in here just like that. And then what you have is, where's that seal at?
He's got it.
That's all I was going to say, is point out the difference, because a lot of guys, I'd say a majority of people are that have worked on a trailer have seen a seal like this. And this is the seal. When you were talking about this protective shield and the backside seal here, I know for a fact that a lot of the issues that I've had with hubs is not necessarily the front side, but water getting in through the back. And a lot of times it's when you put this seal on. When you press this seal onto an old rusty spindle, and it's got corrosion on it, I always like to take a little bit of emery cloth and clean that up real good, just for the fact to get this seal to come in and seal tight. Because if you get a little burr that's on that metal and you drive the seal over, it's rubber, it's going to rip the seal, and you won't really see it, but you'll start to get penetration with water, and the next thing you know, you got water in your grease, it thins out. You start heating up the hubs, it blows the cap out, and now you're sitting back.
And melts the bearing to the spindle.
One thing that I've noticed, too, about these spindles that I haven't done actually I haven't done anything with trailers in a while, because A, I get rid of my boats, and B, I've ran these Vortex hubs. Jason Thompson has one of my trailers. It's a 2015. Travis has used it. I used it. It's been to the Keys. It's been all the way to North Florida, and it's 4 years old. The brakes still work, and we have yet to touch the hubs, and there's not an ounce of grease. Because you can usually, one way to tell if you think you're like, man, how do I know my grease is leaking out? Look on the back side of this hub, and if you see a bunch of black stuff or soot, then you have grease seeping out past this lip seal right here.
Debris and
grime. Well, it's letting the grease out, so it's leaking. If grease is,
you'll see it on your rim too.
So if grease is getting out, I promise you, water's getting in. The key is to seal the system, and it's a very hard task because of the conditions that we're in. But you can see there's an extra lip here, and this is a different type of seal, and I'm assuming it's probably a little bit better quality than your standard seal, just by looking at it.
Look at the thickness.
Another thing too to mention, Jason, if you're not coming from a new spindle, now keep in mind this is a product, more towards the Loadmaster side, but most of the torsion axles you can't remove the spindle. It's part of the torsion axle. So if you're going to change out a hub, let's just say you're going to change out a traditional hub, and you knock this hub off of there, make sure you get the races off, because a lot of times the races will get stuck on the spindle, and if you're not 100% sure that there's something else there, it'll look like it's part of your spindle, and your whole assembly won't go back on right. So make sure you get those races off if you've got an older spindle that you pop off and you're not changing the whole spindle.
And again, it's not rocket science. A lot of people know if you blow your hub, a lot of times you have at that point you've weld it by heat, the race or the bearing on. You can get a torch at Ace, and it's not rocket science, but people don't think about it. Heat swells stuff up. Ice shrinks it. So if you heat them bearings, a lot of times with heat,
They'll bust off.
and the other thing it does is heat will kill the rust around, or not kill it, but it almost burns it loose. So you take a good hammer after you heat it, and you can get the old stuff off. Like Travis said, when you take this off, you can see right here, this is super smooth. This is where the seals ride. If this is pitted with rust or any kind of pitting, the seal's not going to seal, and it's a ticking time bomb. So you have to have a clean surface right here.
And just so everybody's clear out there, so if they wanted to upgrade to the Vortex or this style of hub, that spindle is not required, correct?
Right. Well, I'm not now that I don't know, because I see some difference in a traditional hub.
Okay.
Here's the other good thing about this spindle coming off of your trailer instead of the whole axle, like he said. If you blow a hub, sometimes you ruin this surface to where you have to replace this.
Right.
Well, if you have a torsion setup, guess what you have to do? Replace the entire axle. With this, if you can get this nut off, you can pop it out, put you a new spindle on. So there's so many benefits to this setup. And I'm not saying that, if you have an older trailer, don't go buy a new trailer, not unless you really want to. But when you do go to buy a new trailer, I can't count how many trailer companies there are. Do a little research. Ask them the questions. Because to me, if you're buying a new trailer, you probably trailer a lot. Why not have the best hub system? It might cost you a little bit more, but they're advertising on this paperwork 100,000 mile, 5-year warranty on it. There's a reason. There's a reason why. They're not going to put that kind of stuff out there.
That's a lot of use. I mean, I know. Probably at this point, I probably trailer the most out of our group right now, just because I trailer everywhere I have to go on the boat. And I'm probably putting, I know, between 10 and 15,000 miles a year on my trailer. That's a lot for a trailer.
That's a whole lot.
That's a lot.
Aluminum beams are aluminum beams. The way they make trailers is not a huge difference. The only difference in trailers that I've seen is you have welded trailers and you have bolt-together trailers. They both have their pluses and minuses and their benefits and pros and cons. But the hub system, to me, this type of hub system is really the difference in the trailer. The other thing is lights, and you want to do this part, Travis?
It doesn't matter. I was just gonna throw
I
another.
got grease all over my
Well,
hands.
let's stick to the hub.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Rick's
I'm sorry.
Bearings.
So Rick's gonna do so.
So this is going to apply to probably a lot of people who have a traditional.
So
style.
Rick's going to show you. There's a machine.
There's a machine that does this.
Yes, but this is at home, redneck, and don't make fun of my grease because it's sitting on my shelf forever.
You just get you a good handful
I got Rick's
of
phone number.
goop like that.
Out of all the stuff I've done in my life,
put it down in the palm of your hand
my dad
like
showed
so.
me this.
Then you take your bearing and go to the open side. See how the back side's open? And all you want to do is you just start mashing, just taking a little bit every time, mashing.
Now, before you go to the next one, let's show them how they know when it's good.
Well, I got to get it.
Yeah.
You'll see it seeping out.
I'll switch hands here. I'm tired.
See how
it's coming to the top.
The grease is. I can't point with this finger.
You.
I got you right here.
You can see the grease coming out there, so you know that from there to there, those bearings are packed.
That's called packing bearings.
Packing a bearing. Then you just do it over and do it like that until that's coming out. See how it's coming out right there?
We got to send Loadmaster Bill packing all their bearings.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to. See how it come out good there, because I was actually getting after it a little bit. But yeah, you don't want to send these back to Loadmaster because of the dirt that's in there. It's a messy job, but
Rick likes it.
Yeah.
We actually had to make him put gloves on.
Yeah.
I know. I didn't want to put gloves on. It's such a good feeling. Just keep going around. Just hit that side button right there.
Here, give me it.
Just a little grease.
Well, grease on there.
You're definitely authentic now. You're gonna have grease on your cell phone.
Yeah, that off button is lubricated. It's packed.
That's packed all the way around.
Is it a special type of grease, or is this just trailer grease?
That's just grease out of my garage.
Yeah, that's just a high temp. And what I like to do
temp grease.
Once I get it on there, I just rub it all in everywhere.
Yeah.
Even though, but the bearings are packed, and the thing about the thing about packing bearings for a trailer, you can put too much grease, not in the bearings, but once you get everything set, don't pack all that full of grease.
Right.
Because when you go to tighten the nut to bring everything together, you don't want it full tight.
Yeah.
I'm done.
That's
Want
it.
Full tight.
You don't want it
So
full
this
tight.
is what I want to show you before we go
Got that
into
right
the other
there.
part of it. So this is Vortex's system. Oh, on the grease too. I would recommend if you can find a synthetic grease, I think you'll be better off. There's also grease with why am I having so many brain farts? What's the Teflon?
Teflon.
Grease with Teflon. Teflon repels water.
Lucas
Mercury
oil-
makes a great
Lucas oil
grease.
makes a really good
Yeah,
marine
Lucas
grease as
Lucas
well.
oil makes everything good. But Mercury, if you're at your Alify Marine or family, or any Mercury dealer, Mercury, and I'm going to say this on top of it, has nothing to do with trailer maintenance. I learned this from Alify. Mercury makes a great grease, and I know a Mercury guy. I'm not saying that because of that. Their lower unit oil is some of the best lower unit oils on the market. It has something in it that doesn't repel water. So if you get water in your lower unit, it mixes with the oil well. So you can still run it without.
You don't get separation.
Yeah, you don't get separation. So anyways, this is the Vortex system. You can see right here, 100,000-mile lubrication system. I'm pretty sure they put right here, 100,000 miles, 6-year limited warranty. Sorry, I said 5. No extra cost. No touch lubrication system. No maintenance for the lower operation cost. No re-greasing. Yep.
I love it.
Reusable dust cap that is threaded and easy to remove. The dust caps are the headache because you pop these on when they're new. They're usually okay. This thing will blow out. When this blows out, the system's open, and they blow out all the time. It happened on my fuel trailer. I don't even put it in the water. I had to put another one on there. But when you pop this out and you go to reuse it, this gets jarred up, and then it's not round. I mean, look, I can almost move that with my fingers. It's just cheap stuff.
Yeah.
So the screw-on cap's great. One thing I will throw out there that I thought when it came out, I thought, man, that's awesome because of what I used to do, and semis have it, is an oil bath system. I thought an oil bath system, in theory, was like the best thing out there. What I learned about oil bath system is oil, if you do have a minor seal leak, runs out where grease stays in just because of the viscosity
It'll probably
of it.
give you a longer term to get to safely change it.
I had oil baths and I would just have to keep filling them.
Yeah.
Good thing about an oil bath, semis run an oil bath hubs.
Yeah.
And
That's what my Ranger's trailer's
oil bath.
Yeah.
Have you had problems with water?
I've had the trailer 12 years. I had issues with one of the
Really?
others, yeah.
See, when I'm talking 20 years ago when they first come out, I had oil baths and I just kept putting oil in them because it's not hard.
Right, it's easy.
But it had the little clear glass. But I constantly lost oil, and I did everything, and I've done I don't know how many hubs, and I couldn't get it. And I just come to the conclusion that the environment with oil was a kind
I
of.
definitely think this is better.
Yeah, I mean, grease is just it's thick. So even if you do have a minor problem, the failure is going to happen. It's going to be a lot longer time.
Grease is cheaper than the oil that Ranger
Yeah.
says.
I mean, the grease just is there to reduce friction and to create lubrication for the
all these parts
for the movement.
Friction and heat. Yeah.
Exactly.
So one last thing that I didn't bring in. So everybody has the problem. You never take your wheels off till you're in trouble. So you have these studs here. Little tip. One thing Loadmaster does that I like as well is you can buy the acorn nuts that cover the entire thread, and what it does, it keeps this from reduces it from getting corroded. The other thing that I highly suggest you do, wipes a little bit of anti-seize on every one of these. So when you go to back them off, anti-seize is a world of difference. These things are going to get corroded. They're going to get locked on there. And chances are when you're pulling these off, you're not going to have a half-inch impact. You're probably on the side of the road with cars screaming by. You're trying to get the job done.
I'll tell you another one while you're at it with your anti-seize, which is something you can pick up at a Home Depot or any auto parts store. After you do your threads, what I like to do is I'll dab some back in here for where the tire actually meets to the hub, because I had and if Jeremy Himes and Mickey Gibbs are watching, they helped me years ago at a redfish tournament, and I had a flat tire on a trailer, and they were helping me at the ramp, and we got all the lugs off, but we could not get the tire off. It was not coming off, and luckily we managed to get. They actually had a hammer. I didn't have a hammer. We got a hammer, got behind it, and finally got it knocked off. But since that day, that was probably a good 10 years ago, I always put a little bit of that Never Seas on the back side of that hub, just for that.
I've never
reason.
done that. That's a good idea.
So
though.
Yeah.
anti-seize, because when I put new tires on after I burned through my trailer tires on my Skeeter, I had to replace them. Same hub, so I can definitely say the hubs are great too. So I put that anti-seize on these. The problem is on the spare that's been mounted there, there was no anti-seize. So I was able to get the tire off. I just couldn't get the replacement off to get it on there.
Wow.
So yeah, I had to go to the impact driver.
So Travis,
What are we doing here?
Well, I just want to show them a basic light. There is difference in lights. We all know that, and trailer lights is the necessary evil.
Well,
We're gonna do a butt connector.
Okay, so when you say
Where is
difference
the
in
butt
lights, I
connector?
mean, I think what you're really
I see.
pointing at is the fact
I see
that
it.
the breakthrough and innovation between LEDs versus incandescent light bulbs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and them
mean,
are pretty good
The-
sealed
the-
lights.
The big thing is if you're gonna replace your trailer lights, if you've got a trailer that came with incandescent lights, run them till they burn out.
Mm-hmm.
But when you
Dude,
go to
listen,
replace them,
You got to use.
replace them with LED lights.
Let's say
If you
bulbs.
got regular lights, you
Yeah.
need to upgrade to LED.
It's using all
replace
this technical
Bulbs.
term.
bulbs.
Bulbs.
Yeah,
Bulbs.
incandescent.
You don't replace LEDs. In fact, these are all surface mount LEDs that normally the entire board is coated and sealed.
Mhm.
So, these can go underwater. The old style had a cover on it with a light bulb in there.
Yeah, they're
which was
horrible.
just prone
Yeah,
to.
it lasted.
It's a
You were
nightmare.
lucky to dip it in the water and before your boat comes off the trailer.
It actually, I don't do it. I don't do it as much as I used to. But since we're on the whole lights thing, years and years ago, I was taught to unplug my trailer lights before I backed the boat in,
Yeah.
so that you're not,
I don't do it, but yeah.
causing issues. I don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But I can remember growing up, that was one of the things we did was we always unplugged the trailer lights
Well, because the heat will pop the bulb
because
or
of those
the water.
issues. So
The cool.
nowadays we
The
don't have to worry about
temperature
that stuff. But surface mount LEDs or LED, trailer lights are going to get you a lot further along than the bulb.
Let's go one more step. Rick will help you. I got my hands all greasy. We're going to show you guys. Everybody,
Do a bucket. Now, obviously,
Here, you go ahead and do it, Rick. I got to hold the mic.
go ahead, Rick. I got
Well-
these gloves on putting this together. Explain to them the difference between that butt connector and go ahead and heat
Well-
shrink it on there for them because a lot of people don't know. I mean,
yeah, obviously, you're not going to take your trailer light and heat shrink two wires from the same light together. But we're doing this just out of.
No,
well,
go
we
for
actually
it.
we can just do one. You don't have to do.
yeah, I
them.
was planning on doing one, but
Okay.
the two.
Strip it back a little.
Just well,
Well, if you're going to do it.
well.
This is the process. What are you
yeah,
doing right now? Hang on.
I'm
What are
just-
you doing?
I'm just making more,
Right.
giving it a better connection.
All right.
I twist that like so.
So Rick, what happens when you touch the red and the black? You worked at Tico.
It's not good.
An old electrical term is you let the smoke out.
Slide that in there as
So-
far as it'll
Got to
go.
keep the smoke
Hey
in.
guys, so for the sake of somebody out there who's watching who's never done this, you said a butt connector. I know a lot of people refer to it as a heat shrink. Walk them through the steps.
Well,
here.
it is.
So this is what
Well,
you're doing.
well, no. So
Well,
heat
you-
shrink is
It
what
is
is on
wrapped.
is on
Right,
top
it's-
of this.
right.
This is a butt connector. There's fork connectors, ring connectors. There's all spade connectors, male, female. The idea here is, you can buy a regular butt connector, which is really to splice two wires of similar size. Most of them are rated from, 12.
range.
Right. So you want to get the right size. They're normally red, blue, and yellow.
Mhm.
Red being the smallest, blue being a medium, and yellow being the large. If you want to.
I would have brought a red. I was out.
So you want
Yeah.
to, you do want to size that for the size wire, especially on watertight connections, because
Yeah, this is a little bit big for
You-
this
It
one.
is.
you're
You
letting
should be
too
using
much of
red
a
on
gap
that.
between where you've pinched that
Right.
wire down.
Right.
But where you're gonna overcome that is in your heat shrink. If you do that properly, then technically no moisture should be able to get into this connection, which
Right.
is what you want to protect. The insulation on the wire is going to protect itself, but you've got to create a water seal connection
And
across
you
the
need
two.
to be careful when you do crimp them. You don't get
You don't
so.
want to pierce that. So
Right.
that was actually a subject on a popular Facebook fishing
Really?
forum where people were going to crimp or not to crimp on that. And I've always been told to crimp it and just be cautious of breaking through that.
Yeah.
Well,
cover material.
you're right, and I tell you, if
And,
you really want to get technical,
I wouldn't feel good if I didn't crimp
either.
it.
if you're in an area where you're really worried about it, you can come over with heat shrink over this. Slide your
Right.
heat shrink back.
Let me show you guys something that most people don't know about. And these actually don't have it, but
So I don't know about it.
Well, they do in some fashion. They're just not very good. So, on most crimpers, you're going to have what they call insulated and uninsulated crimp.
Now
tools.
we're talking.
So the flat part is that's going to be your insulated crimp tool, And that's so that when you crimp down, you don't pierce the outer skin or the outer plastic on your butt connector or whatever the connector is. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to use the insulated portion of that crimper. The uninsulated stuff is going to be for bare metal crimps. And what you want to do is you want to puncture that metal down, pinch it onto the other wire. Anything that's got a heat shrink or any plastic coating, you're going to want to use the insulated portion of that, which is flat, which doesn't let it pierce the outer, plastic. It's even more important, like critically important in heat shrink, because if you crack that heat shrink, if you pierce it, when you heat it up, it's going to heat up, that plastic's going to get malleable, and it's going to split, and you're going to get a hole where you pinch that heat shrink. So
that's good to know.
Hey, Garrett gave a good tip out there, fellas.
The colored dots on the crimps.
I'm going to go ahead and heat this up.
And some of them do. This actually doesn't have it, but
and I heat it and just kind of turn it like this to get even distribution.
It'll come out.
And Travis said something when we got here. He's like, "You guys use lighters?"
Yep.
This is just for demonstration.
I
Actually,
use a butane torch.
Yeah, that's probably
well,
good.
a heat gun. Well,
I usually go till I see it start
here's
sticking out.
yeah. Now
there's
there's
the point
it's
across.
still big that it's, it's probably not gonna.
And let me throw something out there, because if you're walking down, let's say, a West Marine aisle, now this is not a good example of a heat shrink. I'm just going to throw that out there. As far as
Horrible job, Rick.
My bad.
You're fired.
Wise.
Sorry.
As far as what we were trying to achieve at work, but I mean, if anybody saw that, they'd go, "That is not acceptable."
Oh man!
Listen, that's all I had in my frickin'. I was out of the reds.
So, no, it works.
I got them all sizes in my boat right now.
But no,
what he's
no,
saying,
I'm
you
talking
take
about
a heat gun,
Yes.
and it's,
you're not going to see this black. You're
it's-
seeing the.
Yeah,
That's
no,
unacceptable, Rick.
That's a
It'll work.
value.
Yeah, we
it
just
will
got
work
scalded.
just as good.
Well, let me tell you
Rick
something
on
that most people don't know. And if you've looked for marine electrical stuff, you've seen where they have basically 2 types of heat shrink. You've got more of a marine type heat shrink, and then you have just a heat shrink. A heat shrink. Well, a heat shrink is more like to kind of hold something tight or protect it for the most part. But if you really want that watertight seal, you see the goo that gooed out off the backside of that heat shrink? That's an extra sealant that's inside of the heat shrink. When you heat it up, that stuff is almost like a glue. It's almost like a silicone that pours out and to get in all little cracks. There's heat shrink that doesn't have that in it. It's just a plastic or like a rubber heat shrink. So if you're going to do marine connections.
You did have a good one. You brought a good
No,
one.
you got the right heat shrink.
That was wrong size.
Wrong size.
No, I knew it was right heat shrink.
Wrong lighter, wrong size.
I just
wrong
meant
operator.
the way it looks. But what you want to
Look,
be careful
that's
of.
stuffed under my console. Nobody sees
It's
it.
really easy to heat shrink the shrink down. What you got to be careful of is most times it takes a lot more heat to heat the heat shrink than it does to burn the wire.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you'll see guys that are looking at this heat shrink, burning it down. Meanwhile, they're melting the insulation on the wire.
But look how good that wire has no black on it.
The heat shrink
other than what's
itself is
pushed out.
sealed.
That's
where your
textbook.
problem is where you melted the
fried your
insulation
wire,
on your
yeah.
wire. So
That was
Well, if you
textbook
take
there,
it, so the heat gun works probably a little bit better for that regard. What you want to do is take this when you're heating it. Be careful and just kind of rotate it a little bit. You don't want to heat on one. Just kind of move it around. I use a butane torch. I got one. I just use it. I know the heat runs better, but
Well, the nice thing
half the
about
time-
a torch or a heat gun, you can move the heat gun.
yeah.
You can take this lighter, and you're doing the bottom.
Yeah,
you ain't
you
doing no
can
good to
only
put.
rotate.
You
Actually,
can't. Ain't
you
doing
can.
no
I've
good if
perfected
you.
a way. I've actually developed a way to do that.
You
you
have
can
to
you
teach
can
me
you
because-
can certainly do it. The other thing is if you keep the flame away from it and just get the heat on it, you won't get that burn mark.
Yeah.
I like that.
But-
Mark.
But here's
that
a
lets
here's
me know
a
we
here's
got it.
kind of a good example. If you zoom in on that,
It's a visual.
That's the visual indicator.
see how that little bump is in the heat shrink.
Yep.
If you were to keep heating that up, let's say overheat it, that would end up splitting right there.
Yeah.
And once that splits,
Right.
now you've got an intrusion point,
Well,
and that
So I'd say that Rick had it like perfectly timed.
It was. This is textbook, but let me tell you how I even go beyond this, and I don't mind the black charred part because I take
Oh.
liquid
liquid electrical
Oh, I
tape.
hate that
electric
stuff,
tape
dude.
Yeah.
and
The
brush
hell
on
with
mine.
that. I'll take another heat shrink. I hate that look. That stuff gets all over the place.
Well, I put
I
a
can't
napkin
stand it.
I'm
under
pretty
it
confident
so
in my
it don't-
heat shrinks that I kind of lay
Yeah,
with that.
no,
but but
not
and-
saying it's bad, Rick. I just hate
Well,
that stuff.
you know, we got chewed on about the wire nuts, but liquid electrical tape is another one of
You want
those.
to knock this in?
If you get a bottle of that or get a little container of that,
Yep.
that's one of those for your marine handy bag. It comes into play in a lot of different situations where, I'll tell you one, in my old boat, I had a bilge pump I had to change. There was no way I could get down there and heat shrink the area that I needed to heat shrink. So what I did was I used the liquid electrical tape.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't get down there to actually heat shrink it.
Oh, it has its place.
The other
I'm not
thing,
saying
too,
it's
is be careful when you're heat shrinking wires, especially this is more in your boat, where you've got 2 or 3 wires that are bundled up, and you're trying to just heat shrink that one. You'll go right on past that one and
Yeah.
burn wires behind it.
Yeah.
So
We've
if you're
all
gonna
done
heat
it.
shrink, uncut them
You
from the
haven't done
zip
it,
tie,
then what are you doing?
and get them out, away from everything.
I've
Kurt's
done
got
that,
a
what you
question
just
for you.
said, like this. I've done that from pure laziness. I got a zip tie holding like 5 wires, and I'm in a rush trying to fix my
Hey,
14th
Kurt's asking a
rule
question
pump.
here,
Kurt's asking a question.
about soldering and heat shrink it.
Soldering's
soldering-
always better.
Soldering is definitely a good method. The only problem is most people have no clue how to actually bond 2 pieces of wire properly. Like
I'm
to
not
take-
going to say
to
I'm
take
the
2 pieces of copper. We learned it in school actually how to do it. And
heat the wire, right?
Well, no. What you have to do is you tin both sides of the wire, and then you actually braid them together.
Yeah.
And then you get the solder in there. But what happens is a lot of people get cold solder joints,
Yeah.
and it just cracks. Because they don't know how to solder wire. But there's a lot of people, not so much in recreational boating like we do, but in marine and industrial boating, they do that a lot.
Yeah.
They
mean
solder those
Where
connections.
their live well pumps don't go bad every month.
Well, but then I'm not even talking about. I'm talking about like industrial shipping,
Yeah.
barges, tugs, things like that.
Tend to be
They'll
using
solder those
this-
joints.
This particular what we're doing here in all of our experience is probably on trailer lights and pumps.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
those are the 2 things that we're constantly going. So, I'd say that this is the most common because it's quick, it's effective, and when you need to go and do it again, it's easily repeatable. I mean,
well, I'm as fast as my pumps have went out this year, I could probably use wire nuts and be okay.
yeah.
I mean,
The real
There's-
the
maybe
real
it's got a good-
application for butt connectors are in areas, in my opinion, from a design standpoint, is you put butt connectors in when you can't fit
Good stuff,
terminals.
Manny.
Right.
Because
It's
if
in
you
my
can fit a
boat.
terminal strip with screws and ring terminals and bond everything nicely, that's the way you're going to want to choose to do it,
Right.
for long-term use. And it's going to be a lot safer because you're not going to have these intrusion points and crimps and all that other crap to
Right.
mess with. Plus, if you want to check something and test it, it's always nicer to have a test point in the circuit on a
Definitely.
terminal strip
Yeah.
than it is to
Now, is
cut
it
a bunch
for,
of wires.
Let's either confirm or spell a rumor. Have you found to lose voltage? So throughout those connections, like if.
oh, you have a voltage
You'll
drop,
get
but it's
leakage.
minimal.
But I've seen a common mistake in boats that I've helped buddies out on things is when it comes time to replace this, you want to cut past it, right? You don't want to cut on
Right.
this side and have another
Right.
heat shrink in the system.
Yeah.
So just something, guys, when you're doing live well pumps, is think about that when you're making your cuts on your wires.
Yeah, you don't want a bunch of.
Especially if it's a boat you're going to keep a long time and there's a limited amount of wire running back to that
Yeah.
pump, and you're going to own this boat for 10 or 15 years, is really keep in mind that wire isn't infinite.
You made a really good point I was going to bring up is it boils back down to resistance. So when you do get a corroded connector.
Keep it simple, Travis.
word
when
I
you
was
get-
looking for, resistance.
Well, no, that's when you
know
say
he's going
drop and you say
complicated.
leakage and all that stuff. It's really you're getting a voltage drop across this because of the resistance. And after that corrosion builds up, that copper, that's your gateway, that's your tunnel. When it gets choked down through this with a bunch of corrosion, it has a different resistance.
Sure.
And so it's passed across that, which is a voltage drop, which
Yeah.
in turn your lights dim or they
Any-
don't work or whatever.
Well, and I know you'll agree with me on this. Any connection from your battery to your motor to your battery to wherever, any connection, whether it's a fuse, whether it's a terminal block, that is going to have some type of a voltage drop.
Right.
Now, what the voltage drop is going to be will probably be the size of the wire and how far the run is and all that. But any connection, whether it's a terminal block, fuse block, a breaker, any kind of connection like that, you're going to have some type of voltage drop. A lot of manufacturers will compensate that into their engineering of the panel or whatever, and it's usually minimal. On a live well pump, you're drawing 3
Probably
amps.
Ohm's law, right, Kurt?
Yeah, 100%,
We got
Kurt. You're
Kurt
right on.
Kurt's
Especially
all
with
over
AC.
this.
Speaking of Kurt,
He's waiting
guys,
for us to mess up.
Are we good on all our trailer?
Well, this here, Jason was going to tap this in, and
Well,
Manuel said that about a
he
rubber
did.
hammer. Yes, a rubber hammer is definitely better. But
or
if you
something
don't,
flat.
I take a
block.
small 2x4
Yep.
Right.
instead across there.
Well,
and tap
I probably
it in.
should have brought that, but I was just gonna see if I can get it in. Just show you how easy they tap, and I already got it crooked.
You're
but
already done.
I'll get it.
Oh,
It'll go.
So you just hit it just like that, and it goes in that easy.
we are
Now
packed.
these are
Yeah.
probably a little bit harder. These you definitely use
Those are a pain, and once you
these
dent
are-
them,
Those
yeah.
once
are
you
all
dent
It's
them,
done.
your
I mean, I'm
toes
gonna hit
toast.
this and just. Well, now it's not gonna dent, but usually you hit them like that and they dent. So these you really want to use probably a 2x4
Yeah.
rubber mallet. You can also use a socket that fits this outer ring. Works really good. And
That's
then
a
you,
big socket though.
yeah, I mean, I got some, but yeah,
I
if you
don't
got,
have one.
well, if you got a socket or something, it works good, and then you can put an extension on it. Then you hit the extension, and just keep pressure.
We actually had a piece of pipe. We had a piece of steel pipe that was about that long.
Yep, or pipe. You
It
can
works-
use
it
fence
works
pipe
really
or
good.
something with a little bit of a
You
lip.
just
but
want to be
anything-
careful. I can't stress it enough.
You don't want to
This
hit that
little-
seal.
10-cent. This little 10-cent piece of rubber right here.
Is the
is-
deal breaker.
is-
It cost you hundreds.
Yes, it will cost you hundreds in a lost fishing trip. That little
And
rubber.
headaches.
or worse.
So when you're sliding this hub on, and when you're working around this area, that guy right there is something you want to keep protected. Sand,
Well, good
even
deal,
sand
guys.
up on the spindle. When you go to put that on there, we'll cut that.
A lot of
Just
good
like
info
that.
tonight.
Oh, we're in a
You
wrap.
know, we're in overtime right now. We've got Wings calling my name. It looks like Tony might meet us out there. Anybody else who's watching, we're going to head over to that Wing House.
Wing
but
House.
before we shoot out, we got our buddy Kirk with the O'Brien's Fishing Club.
Don't forget your gloves when you do that
Don't
either.
forget your gloves when you do that.
Yeah.
We got the O'Brien's Fishing Club guys. February 13th is their next monthly meeting. Quickly followed on February 16th, which is a Saturday. You got the first annual year-long Battle of the Species running just about all year from February 16th to November 9th. So check them out, O'Brien's Fishing Club.
And I want to. We kind of skipped over the trivia. Jace got it. It's
Yeah.
30. They had 15 teams or 15 high schools. They got
to 30.
a new 15 came in, so now they have 30. And Costa just stepped up and said we want to sponsor this.
Heck
so
yeah.
anyway,
All right, well, that's it for
Great
today,
show, guys.
Signing out.
Don't forget, like our page, follow our page, share our page. We need friends.
Views.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
We're out.